الرحيم باب التيمم قال ومن لم يجد الماء أو خارج المصر وكان بينه وبين المسلمين حقوق ميل مختار يتيمم بالسعيد لقوله تعالى فلم تجدوا ماء فتيمموا سعيدا طيبا وقوله عليه السلام التراب طهور المسلم ولو إلى حجج ما لم يجد الماء والميل هو المختار في المقدار لأنه يلحقه يلحق الحرج بالدخول المصر والماء معدوم حقيقة. Okay, stop there. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So the chapter we're starting now is the chapter on Tayammum, which is a very, very relevant chapter. Actually, not starting, we done the introduction yesterday, full introduction, and we even posted the hadith upon somebody's request, etc. That this shows you that Salah is such an important aspect of a believer's life, that even if there's no water, he still have to read. Even if he doesn't have ability, he can't find water, he still have to read. Even if he's not close to a masjid, he still have to read. Even if he cannot stand, he cannot sit, he still have to read. He has to lay and read. And if he cannot make imam, that's like moving the top part of his body, he still has to move with his head. So that shows you under all these all points to the importance of salah. That you don't. That's why I told you also. Yes, I mentioned to you like how if you can't fast, you can pay the fidya in your lifetime. But if you never read your salah, you can't pay the fidya because there's no excuse until you can't even move your head. Till that point, you still have to read. You know what I'm saying? So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So we understand from this, sometimes when we know we discussed this from the beginning, that part of the conditions of Salah is that you must be clean, pure, you must use water, the evolution, right? But sometimes it can happen, maybe more in previous times, not in today's day and age so much. But yes, the maras part, maybe the sickness part that you're going to do in detail also, that is very relevant. But sometimes you don't have access to water like in especially in previous times when people who travel long journey, etc., etc. But it can happen today. Yes, it can happen. You can be traveling somewhere. You miscalculated. You thought you will be by a certain place by a certain time. There will be water, whatever, and then you miscalculated. You ran out of water, whatever. So, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَجِدِ الْمَاءَ, a person who does not have access to water, he does not find water. وَهُوَ مُسَافِرٌ, he is traveling. أو خارج المصري, or is out of the town. Now these two qaid, yeah, these are qaid ittifaqi. It is not qaid ihtirasi. That means it doesn't mean that only when you're out of the town you can make tayammum, or if you are traveler you can make tayammum. Because generally what happens when you are traveling, then you don't have access to water. Because generally in the town there is water. Generally in the town there is water. So it's like what you say, a coincidental condition. What is it? It is a coincidental condition. But if it happens as such that inside the town also there's no water for some reason or the other, like nowadays, with all the crumbling infrastructure in South Africa, it can happen that there's no water in the town. It can happen that there's no water in the town. So those are what we term as a incidental condition, not a exclusive condition to say that you must be musafir or you must be out of town. So if the conditions of tayammum are found whilst you are in town, even you don't have water, we're going to do all the conditions now. Whether you're in town or you're out of town, whatever, still you can make tayammum, right? So for the time being, understand this much. If you do not find water, whether you are a traveler or you're not a traveler, whether you are in the town or out of the town, and then بينه وبين المصري ميل أو أكثر. And this would mean here now, if you understood the previous section, it says, between him and between the water, there is the journey of one Islamic mile or more, tayammum. So what he's saying here is, if there is water, right? But the water is one Islamic mile away from you. Now, just for us to understand, an Islamic mile is more than about 1.8 kilometers, right? So just to understand this nicely, you traveling, just understand this nicely, right? You traveling, right? And you thought you could, just to contextualize this for you, to see how it can be applicable to me, you, and everyone else. Exactly. here you're traveling, right? You thought, but you're gonna reach um, the Shell Ultra City by 3 o'clock, right? Now, you see now, time is going out. It's already quarter to three, but you're still a long distance away from the Shell Ultra City. You with me? Now you stop, you're gonna reach Salah, right? Now you check, you see, hey, we got no water here. What is in the car, right? So now you look around, no water. You stop on the road. So if you looking around, you can see that the closest water is more than I told you. Shar'i mile is 1.8 kilometers. Then there is water here, but there is a farmhouse there, or there is a dam there, but it's more than 1.8 kilometers away from me. Then you are then allowed to make tayammum there and reach Salah. You understand what I'm saying? That they say, بينه وبين المصري ميل أو أكثر. So if you are about 1.8 kilometers away, then you are not mukallaf. Sharia doesn't say you have to undertake the difficulty of going and traveling and traversing the journey and go. So normally you can just look around, you see, hey, you're on the road, you see, no, there's no water. I can see for 1.8 kilometers. I got yaqeen. I got ghalat, but to zan, there's no water around you. That will be fine. You understand what I'm saying? You understood it? That's clear? Right. So, bis-sa'idi. So you make tayammum bis-sa'idi. Yes, sa'id means pure earth. Right? Why? Because لقوله تعالى, because of the statement of Allah Ta'ala, فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً, and then if you not find water, فَتَيَمَّمُوا صَعِيدًا طَيِّبًا, then make tayammum with clean, pure earth. Right? That's from the Quran, right? فَإِن لَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً, so tayammum is proven from the Quran. وَقَوْلُهُ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامُ, and the statement of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, التراب طهور, that sand is a means of purification. طهور المسلم of a Muslim. ولو إلى 10 حجج, even if it goes up to 20 years, 10 years. ما لم يجد الماء, as long as he does not find water. So what he's saying here is, if you're living in a place where you just got enough water to drink, there isn't extra water within the radius, the same radius that you know within 1.8 kilometers for you to make wudu. Then if the same conditions are found for 10 years, even if it is found for 10 years, you can continue making tayammum. You're right? Carry on. Right. So now, what they say here, that وَالْمِيلُ وَالْمُخْتَارُ فِي الْمِقْدَارِ, the mile, it is actually the chosen thing with regards to amount. So to make a reference to this, that there is difference of opinion for exactly what is the distance, but the preferred opinion is this: what? The preferred opinion is that it is 1 mile, Islamic mile. So maybe in some opinions, it's half a mile, some maybe three-quarter mile, etc., etc. But that which fatwa is given upon, it is what? 1 Islamic mile. لأنه يلحق الحرج بدخول المصر. Because here is saying that if the water is 1 mile away, or the water is, the city is 1 mile away where you get water from, it's difficult for that. It's difficult for you now to go all the way to the city. In previous time, horseback, camelback, you have to walk. You have to go now 1.8 kilometers just to fetch. It means every salah you must go fetch water. So there's haraj, there's difficulty in that. And I told you, we say al haraju madfu'un. The difficulty is repelled, it is left out. So if the water is more than 1.8 kilometers away from you, you don't have to go there to fetch it. You'll just make your tayammum. Right? وَالْمَاءُ مَعْدُومٌ. Hakikatan, because look at you. In reality, there's no water by you. The water is not by you. It is 1.8 kilometers away from you. It is 1.8 kilometers away from you. So technically speaking, or not technically, in reality, the water is not there. It is not easily accessible, except with a great deal of difficulty. So it will be permissible for you then to make the tayammum. Carry on. Carry on from there. Okay, والمعتبر المسافة دون خوف الوقت. This is an interesting masla here. People must understand this. In fact, somebody just asked this question. They say, look here, you must you must consider that the time of Salah is going to come out. Take some example to understand this. Here, say you're traveling, right? And now it is, say Zohar time comes out at 3 o'clock, right? So now you say, if I go fetch water now, I'm going to miss the Zohar namaz. So I will just rather, if I go fetch the water or I go search for water, by the time I find the water, Zohar time will be out. So I rather make tayammum. No, that's not correct. You don't look at fear of missing the time. Just if the water is 1.8 kilometers away from you, whether you get the time or you won't get the time, that is immaterial. That is immaterial. You just see that. Look here, the water is 1.8 kilometers away from you. I read my salat. So even if there's enough time, so you know, Zohar time comes out at 3 o'clock and it's 2 o'clock or it's 1 o'clock, Zohar time came in already. You don't have to worry, oh, there's a lot of time. I can travel, I can go, I can find the next Ultra City. I'll have enough water there. No, you don't have to do that. All you have to do is say, look, right now, I want to read my Salat now, right? And right now, within a radius of 1.2 kilometers, there's no water. So I can make the Tayammum right now, right here. You understand what I'm saying? So you don't have to worry whether the time is going out. So even if say just to, the same thing to understand is Zohar time comes at 3 o'clock. Now it's 5 to 3, and you say uh, the water is less than 1 kilometers away. So I go fetch the water. My salat will become qaza. Yes, you still have to go fetch the water, and the salat will become qaza because the water is lesser than the amount time or the amount of distance which creates the latitude. You understood that? Is it clear? There is absolutely no consideration for the losing the time or the time become qaza. You will just see whether your salah will be ada or whether your salah will be qaza. You don't worry about it. See? You don't worry about that, whether the salah will be ada. You don't worry whether the salah will be qada. You just worry that if the salah, if the water is within 1.8 kilometers, you must go and fetch it and make the wudu. That's what I'm saying. والمعتبر المسافة دون خوف. You won't worry. In fact, what that's opinion that if I go fetch the water now, my salah will become qada. Then I'm not paying attention to the distance. That is the opinion of Imam Zufar. It's mentioned there, right? لأن التفريط يأتي من قبله. You're saying why is saying here? Even though your time you will lose the salah time. Say for instance, this is a scenario they're looking at here. Say for instance, 5 minutes left and Zohar time will come out but the water is within 1.8 kilometers. So what we say, you must go for the water. You must go fetch the water. So if somebody says, no, but if you go fetch the water, your salah will become qaza. So rather than make it, we say, no, look here, this man here, he knew he didn't have water. And he left salah to the last time. So that means the shortcomings from his behalf, the shortcoming is from his behalf. So why must he get latitude? He must still go fetch that water because it's 1.8 kilometer, and he must make his wudu and he must read the namaz, even though his salah becomes qaza. You understood that? This is لأن التفريط يأتي من قبله. The shortcoming was from his side, right? Carry on. Okay, so I hope that is clear. That must have quite clear. If the water is not within 1.8 kilometers, irrespective of whether the salah, so irrespective of whether the salah will become adal qada. So if it is more than 1.8 kilometers, even if it will become, so sorry, if it is it's closer than 1.8 kilometers to you, and even if your salah will become qada, you still have to go fetch it, right? That's right. You don't have to write. So this was all related to the absence of water. The next masla, which is so more relevant to us, this is relevant to us, that there is water, which is mostly because of modernization, etc. We have access to water most of the time. That is really, but the question is, you cannot use it for some other reason. Just stay in your places till the end of the period. right? So that's the next masla is very relevant, where there is water, but you cannot use it because of some type of illness. Sometimes you're sick, sometimes you're in the hospital, whatever, right? ولو كان يجد الماء. He has water, the water is there like how you have. إلا أن مريض, but he's sick, right? Now, what type of sickness this we're going to explain now in detail. Not like, you say, oh, it's so cold. If I make wudu, I'm going to feel cold. Not that. That is just what you say, that is tolerable inconvenience. إلا أنه مريض, is sick. فخاف, if he has إن استعمل الماء, if he uses the water, اشتدت مرضه, his sickness will become worse. So, for example, you got fever or something, another must not come to my mind. Sometimes you have a rash, and you go to the dermatologist. The dermatologist tell you, look here, this is, you have to keep. Now we're not speaking about a normal rash. You got like a serious rash. If water touches this thing here, your rash is only going to get worse and worse and worse, and your rash will not be cured. Or maybe another thing, like maybe you got a wound here, right? So now, if you put water on this wound, and then this wound is not going to heal at all. I'm not speaking about you got a small cut here on your finger. As you make wound, cut is going to burn a little bit. Not that type of thing. That is not, you can't be so people that you cut. You know what they call the paper cut? Sometimes the paper cut you even again call a paper cut. Now you make wudu, it's gonna burn a little bit. Not that. Here we speak about you got a serious wound. And if you make wudu, that wound is not gonna heal, right? And then it maybe turn septic or something like that. Or you got a serious rash, and that rash, if water touch, is going to go worse to worse to worse like that, right? So, so that's what you're saying. Or you got like heavy fever. If you're going to make wudu now, the fever is going to get worse and worse and worse. That's what you're saying. فخاف إن استعمل الماء اشتدت مرضه, his illness will become worse. يتيمم, he will make tayammum لما تلونا, because of the verse which we recited. What فإن كان مريضا أو على سفر. Now, what's the verse we said? What was the verse now again? Um, what was the verse? Yeah, we said you sick, which you are sick, right? So the verse is quite clear that if your sickness is going to become worse, etc. So they say, وَلَأَنَّ الضَّرَرَ فِي ذِي الْمَرَضِ فَوْقَ الضَّرَرِ فِي زِيَادَةِ ثَمَنِ الْمَاءِ. So here they're using another masla to prove their point. There's another masla to say if you have no access to water, right? You have no access to water. And if somebody's selling water, selling the water is above market value. Just simple example. Normally the water, just like water sells 1 rand a liter, right? But this guy is selling the water at 5 rand a liter or 4 rand a liter. Then according to Shariat, you are not mukallaf to buy the water from him. Because Shariat, it also considers you, which you shouldn't fear any financial loss. So Shariat says you don't have to buy that water. You don't have to experience that financial loss to buy the water. So they're saying here that if Shariat accommodates you and protect you from financial loss, then to a greater extent, Sharia will protect you if and say you shouldn't do something which will create the increase in your sickness. You understand what I'm saying? That's what he's saying. وَلِأَنَّ الضَّرَرَ فِي زِيَادِ الْمَرَضِ, because the harm that will come about, right, فِي زِيَادِ الْمَرَضِ, in the increase of the sickness, فَوْقَ الضَّرَرِ فِي زِيَادِ ثَمَنِ الْمَاءِ, it is greater. Harm in illness is greater than the harm في زيادة ثمنه, in increasing the price. But وذلك يبيح التيمم, and the harm, financial harm, it permits tayammum. فهذا أولى. So this year of saying that you're going to get increase in your sickness, it's more likely that you must be accommodated in this thing, right? Then interesting masla. ولا فرق بين أن يشتد مرض بالتحرك أو بالاستعمال. You know what it means? You want to try to explain it one? Yeah. Yeah. What I'm saying is here, one is still this much we're discussing. If you use the water and as a result of the water, you get more ill, right? So there's latitude. But here they say If as a result of going to fetch the water, you become ill. And a nice thing to understand this here is, say for example, you are in ICU, for example, Allah Ta'ala protect us all, hospital and your ICU. So using the water per se won't make you sick. But if you have to stand up from your bed and go and fetch that water from the bathroom, you're gonna get sick. Maybe I'll give you some example. Maybe you in traction, your back is sore or something, right? Your back is sore. If you stand up and you go fetch that water, your whatever treatment they gave to your back is gonna be lost. You understand? Um, and there's no one to bring the water to you. There's no one to help you. And yeah, like how the illness creates some type of latitude for you that you can make tayammum. If there's difficulty, if you're going to fetch that water, also it will create some type of illness for you, or it will exacerbate. It will further worsen your condition. Then too, this will also create a type of latitude. There's a saying, وَلَا فَرْقَ بَيْنَ أَن يَشْتَدَّ مَرَضُ. There's no difference in where his illness will become more severe بالتحرك, by moving, أو بالاستعمال, by actually using the water, right? واعتبر الشافعي خوف التلف ومردود بظاهر النص. So yeah, in explaining Imam Shafi's madhab, Imam Shafi was quite strict in this thing. Imam Shafi said the only time you can make tayammum is when there's fear of loss of life or limb. If I use this water, I'm going to die. If I make wudu, my whole limb is going to become paralyzed. Not like I'm going to get more sick. So the Hanafi madhab is more easier. I've got a heavy fever. If I use this cold water, my fever will get worse. Like I told you, if I got a rash here, a heavy rash, not I told you just a paper cut. If I use this water, the rash is going to become worse here, right? So Imam Shafi is very strict. Either loss of life of a limb. When there's a loss of life or limb is not feared, then you cannot make tayammum. We say no, just exacerbation of a serious illness that is good enough to warrant the tayammum, right? So we say, وَاعْتَبَرَ الشَّافِيُّ خَوْفَ التَّلَفِ. Imam Shafi fears either lost talaf, means the destruction of life or limb, وَهُوَ مَرْدُودٌ. But we say this has been rejected by the clear text. The text says, what the text says here, the verse says that even though you're not going to lose your life, but there's fear of what, here there's a verse I was looking for. وَإِن كُنتُم مَرْضَى أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ. If you are sick or if you are traveling, then you will be able to make that. I explained to you when there's an increase in your illness. Okay, that's a nice part to stop there. We'll stop there, inshallah. So we're going to be stopping for 4 days. It's holiday here in South Africa, Easter weekend. So there won't be classes tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, Monday. Inshallah, we will continue on Tuesday. Inshallah, Allah Ta'ala accept. Bas subhanallahi wa bihamdihi. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك ونشهد ان لا اله الا انت نستغفرك ونتوب اليك. Allah Ta'ala accept from everyone.